BP added more than $70 billion to the U.S. economy in 2022. Investments like acquiring America's largest biogas producer, Archaea Energy, and starting up new infrastructure in the Gulf of Mexico. It's and, not or. See what doing both means for energy nationwide at bp.com/investing in America.
I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Welcome to News du Jour. You may be wondering, why am I, Annie Bowles, here hosting this podcast? I usually start by telling people I'm a political baby. You see, my parents met working on Capitol Hill. By the time I was 2, I had been in my first political commercial and even got lost crawling around the West Wing. Don't worry, Al Gore found me. My family then moved abroad when I was 9, and I attended an international school in Brussels with kids from all over the world. And it is this type of global perspective that I also bring to our show. I graduated from American University in DC after studying political science and art history, as well as interning on both sides of Capitol Hill. I even interned down the hall from where my parents met. I'm now pursuing a professional certificate in journalism at NYU in conjunction with Rolling Stone magazine. I guess I was always that friend in the group who cared deeply about not just what was going on politically, but also globally. I often kept my own friends informed through high school and into young adulthood, so I guess I've always done a version of this show. I'm genuinely passionate about following the news, and I'm here to break it down for you guys every weekday. We always strive to be a calmer space to get your news. Or, as one listener put it, like getting your news from a well-informed bestie. I'm so glad you're here. Hey everyone, so my birthday is this Thursday, and I wanted to give you guys a heads up. I'm going to be taking the day off, meaning this Friday we will not have an episode. You guys know, because I am a one-woman show producing this show 5 days a week by myself, I have to take breaks from time to time for my sanity. So I look for little reasons, and I felt like since this is the end of the week, I'm going to go ahead and take off. I'm also going to be traveling for Mardi Gras. You guys know I go every year. But we will have a special bonus episode for you guys coming out on Monday to make up for it. So stay tuned for that. And we will, of course, catch you guys up fully on the flip side. So for today, we have 3 mini stories, and then we have, 3 longer stories. Let's jump in. First and foremost, it kind of feels weird making this a mini story because it's kind of a big deal, but there's just not a ton to tell you guys about. So here we are. It's a mini story. Trump's claim to presidential immunity was actually shot down in federal appeals court. And if you guys remember, this is where President Trump essentially suggested that presidents could be immune from any crimes or any charges that they carried out as an act of the presidency, something that had to do with their job. So like killing a political rival, it's a very terrifying and slippery slope to even suggest something like this. So luckily it was shot down, but unluckily Trump is expected to appeal this up to the Supreme Court. So it is not the last we will be hearing on this subject, but I will continue to keep you guys posted. Another fascinating piece of news for our second mini story to do with the presidential election was that Nikki Haley's campaign received more money in donations in the month of January than any other previous month. It was about $16.5 million in that month alone. So it seems some people still think she's in this race. we'll definitely watch and probably watch her give it everything she's got, but it's still a bit of a David and Goliath moment right now, to say the least. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted. And last but not least, I want to let you guys know as a mini story that it is being widely reported that Prince Harry met with his father in the wake of his cancer diagnosis. As per usual with the royal family, we don't have a lot of details on this subject, but it seemed from the outside that it was a pretty brief visit, but we'll definitely keep you guys posted if anything else comes out about their meetup. And without further ado, we will go ahead and jump into our first longer story for today. So Oklahoma legend Toby Keith has passed away. So country music singer Toby Keith, an Oklahoma native and resident of Moore, right outside of OKC where I'm at right now, has passed away of stomach cancer at age 62. His family put out a statement letting the public know that he'd passed away peacefully at home. His family also asked for privacy at this time. He had a long battle with stomach cancer, you guys, announcing it initially in 2022. He had recently attended the People's Choice Country Music Awards just this past September, where he took home the Country Icon Award. He told the press at that time that he felt he had really been on a roller coaster and that he was having both really good and really bad days at that time, sort of, 0 to 60. And he had been trying to get back to performing as well. And he played a sold-out show this past December. Toby Keith also played throughout his career for presidents such as George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. He won over a dozen awards over the course of his career, dating back as far as 2001. He had won 7 Grammy Awards in total. The New York Times described him as a quote-unquote larger-than-life figure. Our prayers are with his family. May he rest peacefully. Next up, I do have to issue a content warning. This story involves global conflicts. So for our first update, Israel says that at least 1/5 of the hostages remaining are known to be dead. If we're assuming that there were still 136 approximately hostages unaccounted for, then that makes about 27 of them who are assumed dead by Israel. That is a lot of people, 27 people. Again, the world has never seen a hostage crisis like this. Keeping 1 or 2 hostages alive is a lot on its own. So keeping over 100 people alive in the heart of a war zone and in a place that is lacking in a lot of basic resources like clean water, food, medical supplies. I mean, it's pretty unimaginable. But these hostages are really the only bargaining chip that Hamas has at this point. So they are likely going to make every effort to keep the remaining hostages alive. And that brings me to my second update for you guys. Israel has put forth a framework deal to Hamas, offering the exchange of about 100 hostages for a pause in fighting and the release of Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel in prison. Hamas is looking over the deal right now, and we don't have word as to whether they plan to accept it or not. For our third update, Antony Blinken met with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and leaders from both Egypt and Qatar this week to try to rally support for a ceasefire proposal. Blinken has said that the purpose of these meetings was to try to find ways of ensuring a, quote, enduring end to the crisis in Gaza, end quote. So they want to find a more permanent solution. Obviously, what was happening before wasn't working for either side. What's happening now is not working for anybody. So how can we, work with both sides to find a way for them to live side by side peacefully? They also discussed efforts to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East generally, which, are at kind of an all-time high at the moment. Blinken has plans to meet with leadership in Israel and the West Bank later on in this trip as well. All the key players here, basically. So that's it for our global updates. Of course, I will keep you guys posted if anything else shifts, any sort of breaking news, I'm going to share it first on our Instagram stories, and you'll hear more about it here on the podcast. But for our last news story for today, I wanted to give you guys a California weather update. So there is extreme weather in California, including yet another atmospheric river that has really put the city of Los Angeles to the test. Here are some updates from the worst of this storm. First and foremost, so far in this storm, there have already been 120 mudslides, which absolutely blew my mind. Next up, there have been homes carried off by this flooding, which, I had not seen that reported before yesterday's episode, but that also blew my mind. At least one home has been carried away in these floods. It is absolutely bonkers. And lastly, Biden hopped on the phone with LA Mayor Karen Bass and offered federal aid, was basically like, hey guys, I'm here on the phone to let you know I'm going to get aid to you as quickly as possible. I just need you guys to submit the paperwork. So it seems like federal aid is on the way to help everyone out. It is just so insane to me that this happened during the Grammys. It sounds like people who are attending the Grammys were walking through like ankle deep water, actually, which, you wouldn't have known it by looking at that crowd. They looked, nice and neat. But between Alex Earl's Instagram page or TikTok page, chronicling her efforts to get inside, and other celebrities sharing stories about needing to switch out their shoes and whatnot, it seems like it was actually a lot more chaotic than we had previously understood. But, I think last year around this time was when we were seeing really extreme flooding in California. So maybe with the new climate patterns, we're expecting a wetter spring in California. I don't know if that will affect the award season scheduling at all, but it is a little crazy for all of these celebrities to try and make it to the red carpet in one piece in their looks amid atmospheric rivers. Anywho, for today, that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Facts do not cease to exist just because they are ignored." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review on that platform or a shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us to be able to keep creating the news du jour and reach more people who need a calmer space to consume the news. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfree media, and that is also linked in our show notes. You can follow us on social media at newsdujour.podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. You can follow my personal account at It's Annie Bowles on both platforms as well. Any little noises you may hear in the background are my rescue pup. He has a little separation anxiety and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from
BP added more than $70 billion to the U.S. economy in 2022 by making investments from coast to coast. Investments like building charging hubs for fleets of electric buses in California and starting up new infrastructure in the Gulf of Mexico. It's and, not or. See what doing both means for energy nationwide at bp.com/investing in America.